tape on the bottom of my racket so that you can see this is the only position, part of the racket handle, that I feel like I'm putting pressure, all the way at the bottom. And I'm doing this with my ring finger and my pinky all the way at the bottom. You can see that the pad at the bottom of my hand is barely off the racket also. So my pressure that's holding this racket is very low into the grip. I'm not putting pressure in with my thumb, my index finger, or my middle finger. They're gonna feel like they're barely on the racket when I'm doing this. And what this allows me to do is now get the racket to really snap upward very easily, because I have a pivot all the way at the bottom of the racket, and I'm gonna get that to kick upward, very quickly, but I can do so without a lot of effort when I'm putting pressure all the way at the bottom. If you put pressure at the top towards your thumb and your index finger, now you're gonna feel like you're trying to push up on the racket, and it's very difficult to get the same amount of snap. So to get started with this, all we're gonna do is we're gonna toss some small shots here, and I wanna focus on a couple of things. The first thing I wanna focus on, and this is a bit of an exaggeration, but I really wanna let this racket turn down. So this is a little too much. It's not actually gonna turn down that much when you're hitting this shot in real life, but I'm gonna let my racket turn down, and I'm gonna feel like I'm coming into this ball very, very soft. The last thing I wanna do is really hit this ball quick and hard, because it's gonna be very difficult to control the shot. I wanna feel like my racket comes into this ball, almost starts touching the ball first, then I let it kick up with that snap. So piece number one, I wanna get the racket down as it's coming up, coming into the ball very, very soft, then I'm gonna let it snap all the way over. As I'm letting this snap, again, another exaggeration, this isn't exactly how it's gonna happen, but this is how you're gonna feel it happening, is as my racket touches the ball, my racket is gonna snap straight up and down. I don't wanna let it kick forward at all, because now that's gonna get a more penetrating ball flight, and it's gonna go too low, your opponent will be able to return that. I wanna feel like my racket is, again, coming into the ball nice and soft, and then kicking straight up and down. The way we're gonna practice this here at first, I'm gonna hit some mini shots, and I want this ball to just lob into the air, nice and soft like that.
You see the racket get maybe a foot below the height of where contact's gonna be, and I'm on this upswing, and I've got this nice gradual high finish. Okay, if I was hitting a high backhand, just kind of a standard higher backhand trying to get more depth, you're seeing me dip down with the body a little more, and you're seeing that racket now get below where it was for the standard backhand. For the topspin lob, it's a very vertical stroke, and we don't have the equivalent of what we would do on the forehand side. On the forehand side, to get extremely vertical, we hit that buggy whip swing. For the backhand, that is not an option. So what we need here is just this mentality that we're going to be coming way underneath the height of the bounce of the ball and swinging extremely vertically on this backhand. And this is, I've got the one-hander, the two-hander, it's the same thing. We've got to feel a huge amount of drop and then a huge amount of upswing on this shot to produce enough height, obviously, to be able to get it over this opponent's head. Okay, now, in all honesty, I just hit that ball to illustrate how low to high I went. I hit that ball probably 10 feet long. Okay, so in the topspin lob. All right, couple ideas about it. We need a heavy amount of topspin. The way we generally create that is getting the racket to drop significantly more below the height of the tennis ball than on a standard ground stroke. All right, so all you players out there that have that nice loop where you might normally drop that racket to, I want you guys starting to drop that racket into a lower spot, as so to make the path of the racket to the ball a steeper swing. Okay, this brings us into what to do with contact. Now, for some of you more beginner players out there, when the opponent at the net is closing in and getting tight enough where the topspin lob becomes the viable play, a lot of times their approach or their first volley is not struck with a ton of pace. So with the follow through after contact, I'd like to see you guys just kind of have a little bit of a higher finish, but still to the left side of your body. So let's take a look at that. I get the racket head dropping lower, and I go higher with that finish than I normally would. but still onto the left side of my body. For all of you more advanced players out there, the player that's approaching you at the net, whether it's a big ground stroke coming in and they're getting tight to the net, or they've already struck a couple good firm volleys, a lot of times the pace of the shot will not allow you more advanced players to play a topspin lob into this traditional sided finish. So you guys need to be utilizing that buggy whip finish.
Number one, how much to lay the racket back to get the right trajectory on your shot. Usually it's about 45 degrees. Number two, how much of an upward angle do you need to swing with? Usually it's about 55 to 60 degrees. So if that's a 45 degree angle, you're going to have to increase that angle a little bit, 55 to 60 degrees. And number three, you have to figure out how much speed you need to take off your swing in order to keep the ball in play. The only way you'll figure out these three factors is to practice lobbing under realistic conditions. You may want to start off just bounce hitting some from the baseline. Remember to follow through on this shot. You want to make your shoulder come up and touch your chin. Many times players tend to poke at the ball or jab at it with a lob because out of the corner of their eye they're watching their opponent instead of watching the ball. Remember, strive to swing up on that 55 to 60 degree angle with the racket face open about 45 degrees. And then just get a feel for how much you need to slow your swing down in order to keep the ball in the court. To simulate match conditions, ask a pro or a friend to move you around from side to side, up and back, forcing you into lob situations. Glenn now is going to move me around, and I'm going to aim high and deep. I want my lob to land 3 or 4 feet from the baseline. If I can find that range, I'll be in good shape to get back in the point. Okay, the 2 key points to remember with defensive lobs. Number 1, swing on that upward angle of 55 to 60 degrees. And number 2, make sure that you finish the swing. Make your shoulder come up and touch your chin. Watch the ball, not your opponent. Racket well below the contact point and swing up fast and aim a good 10 to 15 feet over the volleyer's head. Offensive lobs, of course, have top spin, so the ball will bounce and kick away from the volleyer trying to run it down. The grip recommended is semi-western, whether you're hitting a forehand or you'd go with a backhand semi-western. Either way. So again, just start off, bounce hitting some. Swing low to high on a very sharp angle, and you have to swing very fast. Think spin on this shot. And it's okay to flick your wrist to give yourself a little extra spin. But remember, only flick the wrist this way. Remember, you're coming into the contact area with a closed face racket. Notice my racket is closed here. Closed, closed as I come up. Now it's vertical. Now I can flick the wrist this way, which will give you that extra spin. But never come into the contact area with an open face and thinking you're going to roll the racket over for your topspin. That'll kill your topspin lob. Okay, as I practice my offensive lob, remember the 2 key points. Number 1, set up like you're going to drive the ball. And number 2, you've got to think spin to get the ball up and over the volleyer's head and back down into the court.
Now are going to help you get the idea of the swing placed against the net, probably at a 45-degree angle, and Brandon's going to get the hang of either leading with the bottom edge of the racket for the underspin or leading slightly with the top edge to get the feel of topspin. So Brandon, let's have you over here. So for the underspin, he's going to lead with the bottom edge and he can get the feel, slowly get the feel of that. So that's the underspin lob, leading with the bottom edge. Now if he wants to go topspin where he's trying to win more of the point, he's probably going to lead a little bit more with probably the top edge and going more, so getting more brush on that. So let's go underspin there, Brandon, please. That's it. Let's go topspin, underspin, and topspin. So the step board has helped Brandon get the sensation of the racket. Now let's do the next progression. Let's have you on the baseline, please, Brandon. Let's have you in the middle of the baseline. I'm going to toss some balls, and Brandon's going to practice using the edges of the racket accordingly. So underspin bottom, topspin slightly more using the top. So I'm going to hand feed, go underspin, Brandon, getting the feeling of going up the, and notice the height and the depth he's got. Underspin, underspin leading with the bottom edge, underspin. Now let's go with topspin, leading with the top edge. Ready, go. Or leading more with the top. Once again, the topspin is used more for if you're trying to win the point. Underspin generally if you're trying to stay in the point or you're in trouble.
There are many ways the lob can be used tactically. Number one, let's say your opponent loves pace and rhythm, and they just love to hit balls about waist high. The last thing they want to see is a lob 20 to 25 feet over the net that's bouncing up around their ears. Players that exclusively use continental and eastern grips usually hate high bouncing balls, because with a continental and eastern grip, it's very difficult to do anything offensive. These type of players usually respond with a weaker shot.
Spin lob here, okay? So here we go. Underneath, pretty vertical finish. You can see that ball is carrying a lot of spin, a lot of height. Notice Mark's relationship to the net. He's pretty close to the net, right? If he's farther off the net, I got to really push the limits of this shot to hit it well. So I like where he's at. Makes me feel like I can really focus on my shot. I'm not too worried about him, which is a great time to hit a topspin lob.
Basically, for a defensive lob, you'll need a low to high swing. However, there are three important factors you'll have to consider. Number one, how much to lay the racket back to get the right trajectory on your shot. Usually it's about 45 degrees. Number two, how much of an upward angle do you need to swing with? Usually it's about 55 to 60 degrees. So if that's a 45 degree angle, you're going to have to increase that angle a little bit, 55 to 60 degrees. And number three, you have to figure out how much speed you need to take off your swing in order to keep the ball in play. The only way you'll figure out these three factors is to practice lobbing under realistic conditions. You may want to start off just bounce hitting some from the baseline. Remember to follow through on this shot. You want to make your shoulder come up and touch your chin. Many times players tend to poke at the ball or jab at it with a lob because out of the corner they're
So he knows there his man did the right thing. Murray just came up with a spectacular lob. Not much you can do about that. Was that Ray?
Point of the day.
Deuce.
You saw how close to the net he was. So that play was available to him.
To lob a man of 6'10" or 11 takes real skill. But Karlovic knew that was too good for Murray.
Glove 15.
Karlovic made no attempt on this one. That was up and over. Too good.
Oh, he's done it again. This time Karlovic had a half-hearted leap at it. Murray has found a way past him.
Glove 30.
Oh, he's done it time and time again. Who would have thought 6'10", 6'11" Karlovic would have been lobbed so often in this match.
30-15.
straight into the corner, and Karlovic bows his head.
Remarkable love.
Got over Federer's head and just dropped like a rock.
Ooh, there's the first one, and it's perfect. He's got an unbelievable lob. I mean, you're coming in off a pacey ball that's pretty deep like that, and you get done.
On the full stretch, Andy Murray's just thrown it up there with enough topspin to dip it down.
Murray continues to torment Thomas Berdych.
Oh, yes. That was time standing still. When that goes over your head, everything goes into slow motion.
Tremendous lob.
How was the drop shot?
Obviously set it up.
Love 15.
Well, that is a beautiful, beautiful shot.
You love it.
I do love it. That is such great hands and feel, court sense. He gets it down low again. Query, he's forced to come up with something unusual. Improvise. Help me out there.
Improvisation.
Thank you.
Заколотит сейчас, конечно, играть.
Oh, yes. A moment of magic from Nadal there.
Должен был выигрывать тогда 5.
He's got no business winning that point.
Oh, yes. Jen.
Whoa!
Bolter to serve. It's a great touch.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful shot there.
Oh, he nails the baseline. What a moment for it.
Oh, again. It's a great lunge from Conte.